Should music school be for prepping you for the real world or embracing the possibilities that exist? Maybe it's for both. Is school supposed to be a laboratory, or is it a trade school? Or is it probably both? So my thoughts is to first say, like, what's the difference between those two realities? And I think for me, I was presented with it naturally as a student in two different institutions that I attended. So when I went to Eastman, it was very much focused on, I think, at least on retrospect, the trade school aspect of it, being prepared to do anything and everything, and being able to function as a freelancer and to be able to conquer any type of music and know exactly what to do to get better at it, seek out mentorship, lessons, resources like books and recordings, all that sort of thing. So I think that school was good at that, and that prepared me for being able to work in New York and play all different kinds of gigs, like pop horn section gigs and Broadway gigs and jazz gigs, and do all kinds of gigs. But when I got to Juilliard, the focus was completely different, at least from my perspective at the time. I was like, wow, all these people are so amazingly talented, but like some of them don't have the basic skills that are necessary to work. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So they're using different selection criteria to let people into school or to identify promising young musicians. And I just thought, oh, that's interesting that this is totally different. And over time, I learned that there is more of a focus on the artistry. So the artistry is like, what do you have to say? Why are you doing this? What music do you like? What music do you want to present if it's up to you? How do you organize music into a project? How do you organize a show? How do you, not like to organize a show as in set up a gig, but how do you organize a show to make it flow musically and present your musical personality and your arrangements, and why play this song instead of that song? And just, I never asked myself questions like this before I got there. And now as a teacher at UNT and before on my own and at Florida State and whatever, I really have been butting my head right up into this kind of back and forth and bouncing back and forth between students or between classes or ensembles. And I think right now, particularly in our program, it's somewhat skewed towards, and I think it's our whole industry, it's our whole education system is skewed towards results. It's skewed towards an end game. And in music, that's a concert or a gig. So people are like, all right, to make this quote unquote better, we need to have more gigs. But it's actually not gigs that make you better. It's just the experience of playing and the experience of having experiences within music. So yes, by playing more gigs, you get more experience. But at the same time, you're just spinning your wheels if then all you're doing is preparing for those gigs. You see how I'm making this circular argument? It's just like it is a circle. And when I think back to some of my most important moments as a student, it was experiences where we did something out of the ordinary and it took you to a place within music making that you can't really do as a professional or on a gig. Some musicians can, but most musicians can't. I know this sounds like a ridiculous exercise, but like turning off the lights, sitting in the room, playing one song for 45 minutes or 60 minutes. Like, when are you going to be able to do that? And what does that do? And how do you make music for that long with one piece when you're improvising? All of that is super interesting and something that's not practical, and it has nothing to do with becoming a professional, but it does have something to do with organizing your musical thoughts. It has something to do with you developing as an artist. So I wonder a lot about what it's for. And I think it's probably for all of those things. It's for getting yourself together as an artist, and it's for getting yourself together as a trade school person, or maybe you need to seek out two different experiences so that you can have those experiences. But in my mind right now, I feel like things are skewed more towards, oh, it needs to be professional, it needs to be like a trade school, we need to allow the students to get more performance experience, and they can play all kinds of crappy gigs when they get out of school, because that's just what happens. That's my thought anyway. And yeah, there's lots of great gigs too, and you're going to work towards getting lots of great gigs, but you don't need to prepare someone for that situation. That's what they need to learn when they go and become a professional. So maybe our time, which is very limited, would be better used creating situations where young musicians can just get excited about playing jazz and allows them to not quit because they feel like there's no opportunity, when there is unlimited opportunity, but we need to create it as a community. It's not like you can just fall into a bunch of great situations. You have to be prepared musically, obviously, but you also need to create the community that's going to create those situations. Because if nobody comes into your show, like, you can't create community, you can't share the music, you can't share why it's important, you can't share your opinion, you can't share your artistry. So I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that as it relates to music school and as it relates to what's our job as educators. I think it's to ask questions and say, what else? What if? But if you're preparing for a concert all the time, then you're stuck, because then you're like, I have to show that we can perform this thing. And it's not about that to me. So I've been thinking about that. I'm interested what other people have to say about it.